Power of One. Today I'm going to be speaking with Jill. Please note this is a very serious show. So if your child is watching this show by themselves, don't allow it. I would like for parents to watch the show with their children. Today we're going to be talking about technology and educating parents on what they need to know for their children and about some of the apps that their children may be on just for your safety. Welcome to the show, Jill.
Thank you so much for having me, Melanie.
You're welcome. Jill, please tell the viewers a little bit about yourself and your professional background.
Sure. So I'm an attorney in California. I've been doing this a little over 15 years. I came from the DA's office. I used to prosecute. That was the only reason I ever wanted to get into law in the first place. Did that for many years, handled everything within this space that you can think of, including child sexual abuse, domestic violence, and all things that are related. So animal cruelty, a lot of sex offenses, handle a lot of gang crimes, and so on and so forth. When I came to ePlace about 5 years ago, I helped build our sexual misconduct and molestation unit. And now I get to be on the flip side. So I handle a lot of prevention aspects. I create policies and procedures and trainings, and I speak all over the country to different high risk industries to make sure that I can prevent a tragedy from happening.
Jill, tell the viewers the difference between child abuse and child pornography.
That's a great question. So, child sexual abuse material is the new name for child pornography. And the reason is for decades and decades, child porn or kiddie porn, which is a terrible term, has been used far and wide. But the reason it's not used anymore is because child pornography infers consent, right? Pornography requires consent, and a child can't consent. So it's not child pornography, it's child sexual abuse material. And there's actually a few states, a handful of states so far, that have changed the laws on their books to take the term child pornography completely out of their laws and to replace it with child sexual abuse material, or as its shortened version, CSAM.
I recently learned about deep fakes. And I want to tell you, like technology today, it just like scares me. When I was coming up, we had beepers. So we would get a beep and then we would have to go to a payphone and call that person. But technology today is just unbelievable. Tell us about deep fakes and give us some statistics on deep fakes.
Sure. So I actually didn't grow up with the internet either. I grew up with my beeper. So I feel you and I miss that, right? Those were definitely the better days. Deepfakes are really one of the very negative side effects of this crazy AI explosion that we've seen in the last couple years. A little bit more than that, but it's really come to everyone's attention in the last 1 to 2 years. So what deepfakes are, they're photos, videos, or audio where a person's face, body, or voice has been digitally altered through the use of AI. So it creates fake but really highly realistic content. And the idea behind deepfakes is that it's really meant to gaslight the viewer. The idea that seeing is no longer believing. The picture, the video, the audio wants you to believe that that is real, that that celebrity looks like that, that that person has that body, that that famous person said those terrible things, when actually none of those things are actually usually true. Now, when it comes to stats, there are lots and lots of stats about deepfakes, but a few really high level ones. So in 2023, we don't quite yet have the stats for 2024 on this, but in 2023, deepfake attempts were up 3,000%. I would imagine that that number is actually significantly higher for 2024, and it'll be probably double for 2025 when those numbers eventually come out. 60% of the average person that you see on the street has encountered a deepfake within the last year. The interesting part of that is that only 15% of those people believe that they've never encountered a deepfake video. So everyone believes that they can identify a deepfake, but those stats really tell you otherwise, right? Only 15% of those people say that they've never encountered a deepfake when 60% of us have.
Mm.
Another really interesting stat is when it comes to voiceovers and deepfakes for voices, only 3 seconds of audio is all that's needed to produce an 85% voice match. So,
Mm.
on, it could be even a TV show, a movie, your social media. Anything where there's video, only 3 seconds. And all that's needed, it doesn't even matter what you're saying, what your tone is, what you're talking about. It's just 3 seconds and it can create an 85% voice match for someone to create a voiceover using your voice. And then, finally, deepfakes, actually only a small percentage of deepfakes that are out there are sexual in nature. A lot of them are used for politics and elections, but of all of those deepfakes that are out there, 90% of them are sexual in nature, which is a huge, huge percentage when you think of them only being a small percentage of the deepfakes that are created in the first place.
How are they made?
So it's kind of a technical answer. There's really two parts to that. So on the one hand, one photo is all that's needed to create a deepfake. And that doesn't have to be a current social media video or photo. That could be a high school yearbook picture from 40 years ago. There are apps that can age you, right? And there are apps that can clean those pictures up. So it doesn't have to be something current. It can be a picture from anywhere at any time in your life. And that's all that's needed to create a deepfake. On the technical side, deepfakes rely on a form of machine learning, and it's meant to mirror the way that neurons interact in the human brain. So basically, it's two algorithms. It's called a generator and a discriminator. And generators take the initial set of data for a new image, basically, and we'll talk about this probably in a little bit, but one of the common types of deepfakes is that you can actually type into a box what you want that picture to say. So the generator would be, for example, you type into a box, I want this person to look like X, Y, and Z wearing X, Y, and Z. Then you hit enter. So the generator creates that image, right? And then the discriminator, the second algorithm, it evaluates what was generated. So it evaluates that content for realism and it feeds its findings back into the generator for further refinement. So the combination of those two algorithms is really the fancy name for machine learning. It's called generative adversarial networks. And the discriminator portion of that algorithm, it makes each deep fake better, right? Because it's feeding information back into the generator saying, this doesn't look realistic, this should be better, fix this next time. So every additional deepfake that's created is a little bit better than the one before.
So now deepfakes can be on social medias. Can they so I guess my question is could somebody think they're talking to one person? Could that person actually send text messages? Could it be phone calls? Is this all a part of it also?
Absolutely. So you can create, so there's a few different types of deepfakes. And this may answer your question. So there's three main types. There's photos, there's videos, and then there's voice alteration. Under those, there's a whole subset of each one. So for example, for photos, what I mentioned before is you can do a text to photo, right? You type in the box what you want that picture to be, and it's being created from absolutely nothing. And those generators are scary and incredible what you can create just from typing that information into a box. With the photos, another common aspect of deepfakes are also face swapping. So you can take your face and put it onto the body of a celebrity, or take the body of a celebrity, or take the face of a celebrity and put it onto your face, and it creates a totally different person, right? A person that doesn't exist, but that looks and can look very, very real. That's the same side of the coin, is that you can do body swapping. So like face swapping, but body swapping. So your body is now the body of a celebrity or vice versa. When it comes to videos, you can also do a text to video, just like what I had mentioned for photos. So you type in the box what you want the video to be, and it can be people, it can be doing actions, it could be something sexually explicit, it can be children. And this is really, honestly, kind of a predator's playground. That video can be created to be anything you want it to be. You can also now create videos from photos. You can take a still photo and you can have it animated. You can have the person who's just standing there. Say you're standing in a photo with children or family members or your best friend. you can now have that image animated to look like the two of you are walking and talking or holding hands or something like that. You can also do the face swapping and the body swapping now with the video. And you can also take a still photo and it's called lip syncing or dubbing, and you can have the lips move to make it look like now a video, right? To make it look like you are talking or you're saying something that you never said in the first place, because what you're actually looking at is a still photo. And then the third type along the same lines is voice alteration. So you can change the tone, the voice, the gender, language of anyone's voice, right? All it takes is that 3 seconds to have an 85% voice match. You could do the dubbing or the lip syncing, and you can also do a text to speech, just along the lines of what I mentioned for photos and videos. You can type into a box what you want that person to say, and they say it. And this is wreaking havoc. It's created a lot of horrible things that have ruined careers and are ruining reputations, because people think that this person said this awful thing that they never actually said.
How on earth can someone identify deepfakes?
So there's a lot of really good information out there. I will give some, kind of some high level ones, but I would definitely urge you to go on, and you can really Google it and you'll get lists and lists and lists. There are some really good deepfake catcher apps. More are popping up, but some pretty good ones so far. There's one called Deep Trace. There's one called Fake Catcher, which is really popular. And then the MIT website has a detect fake websites link on it. You can also use search engines. So old school Google reverse image search can actually be really helpful for deepfakes. It'll give you images, it'll give you details on images, like how far it's traveled, it'll unearth counterfeits, it'll show you where that image originated from, if it's been used before. And then when you're looking at either photos or videos or voiceovers, there's a handful of things that are really common. And at the end of the day, some deepfakes are really, really good. A lot of them are not. They're getting better, but a lot of it is common sense, right? If the hands look blurry, if the mouth isn't moving to look like what the person is saying. So one of the things you can do is you can examine the face. Does the facial skin tone match the rest of the head or the person's body? Are the edges of the face blurry? Have facial moles or marks moved from second to second or clip to clip? Like I said, look at the mouth. Do the lips match the audio perfectly? And then also you can look at the teeth. Are the teeth clear? Are they changing color? Do they look blurry or like somehow inconsistent with how teeth would look in real life, right? That common sense idea. Keep an eye on the eyes. Deepfakes don't generally blink the same way we do. Eyebrows may not move. Usually there's a lack of pupil dilation. You're also going to have a lot of unnatural body movements. Does the person look like they're moving erratically? Is it not in line with what they're saying or what's being depicted in the photo? Do the movements from one image to another line up, or do they not? Are the positions of the head and body kind of uncoordinated? Do they contradict to each other? You're also going to have a lot of really odd coloration. So keep an eye on the video color and whether the lighting fluctuates from one frame to the next, even just a little bit. And ask yourself if the person's natural skin color seems unusual, especially as it goes through the video. A couple other things. So you could have artificial audio noise, which is really common to mask audio changes in a video. You're going to have unnatural hair, right? Does the person look absolutely perfect? Do they have absolutely perfect hair? There's no flyaways. Does the facial hair look a little too perfect? That's going to be in both photos and videos. You're going to have irregular reflections and shadowing. It's something that can be a little subtle, but really important. So deepfakes often do a really poor job of recreating shadows and reflections. So look closely at them, surrounding surfaces, in the backgrounds, or even if there's reflections within eyes or glasses. And like I said, I would definitely urge people to go on, Google it. Things are being added to the list all the time, especially as deepfakes get better and deepfake catcher apps get better. But these are some of the more common ones to look for.
So scary. So if someone discovers there is a deep fake, how do they report it?
Great question. reporting deepfakes is so, so important. There are a lot of organizations out there that take it really seriously and will look at each one, especially because there's such a tie-in to from deepfakes to other AI crimes like sextortion and things like that are leading to increased numbers of suicide, especially for teens. So reporting these, no matter whether you're not, even if you're not sure if it's real, even if you think it's not a big deal, maybe it's a one-off, every single one you should be reporting. So there's a couple main ones. One, report it to the FBI. It may sound crazy, do it. They have a great email. It's called CyWatch. It's CY Watch at FBI.gov. They take them very seriously. They look into each one. Also, NCMEC, which is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, they have a great initiative called Take It Down. And that actually allows kids, a minor of any age, to go on their website and report a deep fake on their own anonymously. So, we can talk about preventative measures and, making sure that kids have a trusted adult to go to and how they can report and all of these things. But at the end of the day, you're dealing with teenagers by and large when it comes to deepfakes, especially in schools. And they're not going to want to tell you if they think that they did something wrong. That's just how it is. So knowing that, right, that this whole initiative was created by NCMEC to allow them to go on and report it themselves, that either they created one or that one was created of them. And then the National Center for Missing and Exploited Kids, they investigate it and they go through the steps of taking that deep fake down without that child having to report it to an adult if they're unable to do that for any reason. There's also a couple other great organizations. One is called the Cyber Civil Rights Initiative. There's one called NTAB, which is Ending Tech-Enabled Abuse. And then there's an organization called CyberSmile. They all have great resources for helping you report, for helping you, work with either children, minors, or adults, and what that process looks like for investigating and taking it down and what the next steps are. Also, the last thing I will mention is make sure you know what your mandated reporting duties are. Deepfakes trigger your duty to report. Obviously, this is state specific, but deepfakes for minors are a type of child sexual abuse, right? And child sexual abuse, I believe, in every state triggers your mandated duty. So please know what your duties are, know what the warning signs are, and know what to look for.
Okay. You spoke about sextortion. Explain what that is.
Sure. So sextortion it's a crime that involves any person of any age being coerced into sending explicit images online. So it can happen on any site, app, messaging platform, game, anything where people communicate. So basically anywhere. And what happens is you have the perpetrator. Originally, when sextortion scams happened, and this is still very common, normally it was somebody in another country. And they would say, for example, create an Instagram account for a teenage girl, right? A cute girl. She was 16 years old. And this person, as this 16-year-old girl, would message a boy, start flirting. This boy would think that she's interested. And then she would either coerce or trick the boy into sending sexually explicit images of himself to her, to this perp. And then once the perp received the pictures, they would then turn around and say, hey, unless you send us more video, more pictures, whatever it is, we're going to send this out to all of your contacts, to everyone in your school, to everyone you know, and we're going to ruin your life. Or if you send us more, maybe we don't want to send this out to your contacts. Maybe we want you to pay us, right? So there's financial sextortion. Unless you give us money, gift cards are really common, Apple iTunes gift cards, gaming currency, so like Robux on Roblox. Unless you pay us these things, now we're going to send out, these pictures or these videos that you sent to all of your contacts. So that's kind of the basics of sextortion.
Okay.
With deepfakes, though, the really scary part, it's all scary, but there's a brand new issue when it comes to deepfakes and sextortion, is that historically, right, the perpetrator needed that initial photo or video to create the scam, right, to create the threat. You sent me this, so unless you send me money or more photos, I'm going to send this out. The problem with deepfakes now is that that perpetrator doesn't need that initial video or photo to be created,
Mm,
right? They can take a photo from this kid's Instagram and create their own deep fake. And then
mm,
by the time they reach out to the victim, this sexually explicit deep fake has already been created of them. And they say, hey, we created this. It doesn't matter if it's real or not. We're going to send this out to everybody. Look how good it is. They're all going to believe it unless you do X, Y, and Z.
mm,
And those types of scams, unfortunately, are happening in the course of quite literally hours overnight. Some
mm.
of them are longer, right? Some of them are happening over weeks and months, but generally these scams are happening overnight, and it creates such a sense of shame and embarrassment and fear.
Sure.
It's such a short period of time, right? That these kids are not wanting to turn around and report it, and it's creating skyrocketing levels of suicide.
Mm, that's horrible. That's horrible. Explain what IBSA is.
Sure. So IBSA is just the shortened version of image-based sexual abuse. And image-based sexual abuse, it's a violation, usually a sexual violation, right, of a person that's committed through the abuse or weaponization of any image of that person. So IBSA, it's basically an umbrella term, which includes all different things like creation, the theft, extortion, threatened or actual distribution of any sexually explicit images without the meaningful consent of the person that's in those images. It can also include, and this is really important, any type of sexual violence or harassment committed towards a person's avatar in online gaming. So what you create your little character to look like in Discord, in Roblox, um,
Mhm.
that can lead to sexual abuse. And in this context, so image, just for clarity, right? Image can be any visual depiction, right? Visual depiction or representation of a person, and it could be photos, videos, edited or altered images, or any type of representation in VR or online gaming. Um, and like I said, it's an umbrella term. So IBSA includes deep fakes. It includes sextortion. Image-based sexual abuse is also the umbrella term for things like revenge porn, any type of video voyeurism.
Mm,
So, like down blousing or upskirting, like that spy camming idea, and any non-consensual distribution of sexually explicit material or recording sexual violence.
how do we prevent this from taking place? Because this is super, super scary. Like you said, with the advancement of AI and deepfakes, how do we get rid of it?
So realistically, we're not going to be able to get rid of it, right? This is the advancement of technology. It's the advancement of AI. So what you have to do is you have to put prevention measures in place.
Mm,
You're never going to be able to get rid of it. It's not realistic, right? As technology progresses, things like this are just going to happen. And I was reading an interesting article that said that kids today are not doing anything differently than what we did, right? So
sure.
I'm
Yeah.
in the, I'm in the era of the very beginnings of AOL, right? And those chat rooms of the beginnings of AOL were probably the worst predators playground of all time.
Yeah.
We didn't have a point of reference for what to do. At least
Right.
now there is a point of reference, right? We know the warning signs, we know what to look for. Reporting these things is one of the biggest things you can do, because
Okay.
you know at the end of the day that you can't stop technology from progressing, but you did your part in making sure
Hmm.
your kids, your students, your organization is safe. And what comes of that is something entirely different, and that is out of your hands, but you did your part. And that's really huge because a lot of people have, what's called the bystander effect, right? That
Hmm.
thinking that someone else is going to take care of it. That person will report it. Oh, this isn't a big deal. I don't need to do this. Someone else will do it. Someone else will do it. And then
Yeah.
everyone has that mindset, nobody does anything.
Nothing is done. Right.
These
Right.
reports, right, shooting an email off to the FBI takes literally 5 minutes. Giving
Hmm.
kids the link to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, the Take It Down initiative, takes 10 seconds to send that link out. and
Mhm.
it can literally save a life, right? It could make such a huge difference, um, not only in saving a life and preventing a tragedy, but preventing suits and claims and liability for schools and things
Mhm.
like that are also really important. Um,
Yeah.
and the acknowledgement that you can't put your head in the sand, right? These things are not
Mhm.
going to go away, and make sure that you keep up with current legislation. There's a lot of pending federal legislation. If your state doesn't have any legislation that really has legs yet, good
Mhm.
legislation is coming to a state near you. So make sure that you keep up with that. There's a lot of changes that are coming to social media, the app store, and just make sure to keep up and talk to people, right? This is education and awareness are going to lead to
Mhm.
change. You cannot create change if people are afraid to talk about these things. So
Correct.
it's okay, right? Terrible things happen everywhere and they're going to continue to happen. Let's talk about it, raise that awareness, keep up that education, and you'll be able to save a life.
Thank you so much for all of this wonderful, wonderful information. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Very heavy conversation, but understand the world in which we are living is changing again because technology is changing. You have to keep your children safe and you have to keep you safe also. If you are on social media or any type of electronic device, keep yourself safe. Peace and love.